God bless everybody today. It is April 2nd of 2023. This is a Daniel 8 and Daniel 10 update on what's happening in the Middle East based on Bible prophecy and just updating you on current events and how this is unfolding and how that's going to affect these prophecies. I've talked about these prophecies at length. Basically, if you walk into Daniel 8 and 10 and you look at how it's laid out, and I've done many videos on this, we would see Israel, potentially even the United States, attack Iran first and their proxies, but this would fail. The United States would abandon them. Israel would rely on Egypt and mainly Turkey. Turkey's going to come into this after the election. Erdogan has an election on May 14th, and he's going to start a ground invasion against the Kurds after this election cycle. So once he gains power, I believe that will unhandcuff him, and he'll have the ability to invade through Operation Claw Sword. But this is just a basic update. I want you to understand what is happening. We're in the middle of turmoil pretty much globally, but you really need to keep your epicenter into the Middle East because that is where the biblical epicenter is. And so I just wanted to fill you in on a number of these articles. Now, do realize there is so much happening on the ground that I cannot give you all the articles, or the videos would be too long and no one would watch them, and I don't have that much traffic anyway, so I'm trying to make these videos so that you can understand in a short period of time what's happening and apply it to what's happening in the Bible. So let's walk into a few of these. These are extremely important articles and how they're affecting the situation in the Middle East right now. So the Israeli cabinet has approved, and I'm going to butcher names, so if you hear names and I'm butchering them, I'm sorry, I'm just not very good about names, and I do try. But some of these names are extremely hard, and I don't do really well with Hebrew and all these other things either, even though I look into this. Trying to pronounce and do some of these things is difficult when you're dyslexic. Anyway, this gentleman, Ben Grooves, is the gentleman that started this problem to begin with, I believe, in a lot of ways, because he's the one that went to the Temple Mount on January 3rd and started this original problem in the prophecy of Daniel 10. I was talking about that and how Daniel is on the 24th day he has this vision, but it talks about Michael has been withstanding him for 21 days, and then he comes to Michael with this vision of what's going to happen next. And so if you look at that, you realize that takes us to January 3rd. Well, on that date, this person, this Israeli National Security Minister, went to the Temple Mount and caused a ruckus up there. And this, I believe, started the Palestinians and Hamas, Hezbollah, and all these groups to inflame, and it's gone on since. And so he's now going to start to use his Civil Guard, his National Guard, which is 2,000 strong, to go against the anti-government demonstrators and the Palestinian citizens in Israel. And I believe this is going to inflame this whole situation. And so I just wanted you to realize that Israel is taking extraordinary measures to try to quell these uprisings and protests in the country as they're trying to change this judicial situation in their country, because basically the right wing is trying to control more of the judicial branch, and this is causing all kinds of conflict within the country. There's a lot going on in Syria and Iraq, but just realize that we're having a number of incursions with the Syrians and the Iranian proxies, okay? And there's a lot of proxies that Iran controls, but Iran has been moving closer and closer to the Israeli borders, and they're placing these different areas around Israel, okay? And so as they get closer and closer and encroaching more and more upon Israel, Israel's striking back, and so that's why we're seeing this escalation happening. So Israel is shooting down all kinds of different drones. We've had attacks on Damascus Airport. The United States has done some attacking. Israel's done some attacking. Hamas has launched some rockets back and forth. There's a lot of different things happening, and I keep talking about this escalation. This is not going to go away. Someday this is really going to break out. Now, based off the prophecy, it clearly states that Israel and maybe even their allies would deal with Iran to begin with, but they don't complete the mission. They fail or they don't get the job done. And so it clearly tells you in Daniel 10, as I've shown you many times, that Turkey or the king of Greece would come in afterwards. And so you have to watch that election cycle, because Erdogan is going to, in my opinion, based on prophecy, get elected on May 14th of 2023. Now, these prophecies, they run through multiple different prophets. It's just not Daniel, it's Isaiah, it's Jeremiah, it's all of them, because they're all telling you the same thing. And what Isaiah was telling you, if you go to like 28 to 38, I believe I've talked about this many times, and maybe I'm just quoting the verses. I don't do really well with verses on the fly. And I don't have this all memorized like a lot of these guys out here. I don't have that capacity. I'm just trying to figure it out like the rest of you. I'm just a general guy out here trying to figure it out. My memory's not good. That's why I write everything down. And I think most people should write things down, because you can't remember these things and then tie all these different loose ends together. But if you look at Isaiah, he clearly states something extremely important. He states that basically Israel will go and they'll barter with Nebuchadnezzar, which is Turkey in this case, and Egypt, to eliminate the Persian or Iran. But this turns out badly, and he tells them that you should not rely on these two countries, Egypt and Turkey. You should rely on God. But by doing this, God is going to do something against Israel. And so what's going to happen is Nebuchadnezzar is going to come in here, because Israel is going to fail in their attempt to eliminate this problem. And so the king of Greece, or Turkey, comes in at a later date. And that's what I keep talking about. You got to watch this election of Erdogan on May 14th, because he's going to start this ground invasion called Operation Claw Sword just after that. And because this opponent of his is a pro-Kurdish opponent, I believe that will just make him more infuriated and mad. And so when he does unleash this, it'll be a shock and awe type event, as it indicates in Daniel 8. This is like a whirlwind. It happens so quickly. The ram gets trampled. These two nations, the Medes, or the Kurds in this case, and Persia or Iran, both will basically fall. They'll be absorbed. Excuse me. That would complete Daniel 8. And then that would move you into Ezekiel 38 and 39, which would take you to Egypt. As 10 nations of Muslims are forming, these are radicalized Muslims, form, they go to Egypt, and as Egypt in the case of them going against Persia, Egypt runs away. They don't fulfill their obligation to Israel. They actually go and they desert them. So Turkey comes in and takes care of the problem. But then they come back against Israel over time, but they go through Egypt to do that. And so Turkey is going to deal with Egypt and Israel at the same time. And if they break out around May, June, they still have the ability to get to Israel by October, I believe, and that would still be within the paradigm parameter. I think it's really interesting because this story here sort of sums up that Netanyahu is as being, isolated, and so is Erdogan in the Middle East. And so these two isolated groups are sort of joining together, but they're both nemesis in the past because the Ottomans and the Jews didn't get along, and this is what ended it badly for the Ottomans in World War One. But like I say, if you look at that seventh kingdom, which is the Ottomans and the history of the Jews, you'll realize that the eighth beast kingdom, there's nothing in between the Ottomans and the beast kingdom. So the Ottomans have to be looked at because that is the seventh and last kingdom prior to the beast kingdom. But as of right now, as the Bible tells us, Turkey will join Israel to eliminate this problem of Iran or the Persian, but then Egypt will desert this process. They'll run back home, but then Turkey's going to come back against these groups over time. So just realize that you've got a lot of working parts going on here. You need to look at Daniel because Daniel lays out how this actually happens. And then you go back into history and realize that a lot of this has occurred already. He's just replaying it over and over again so that we hopefully will see it someday. And I've been talking about how Erdogan is running against this pro-Kurdish opponent. And this is going to cause a lot of friction in Turkey because this is going to cause a lot of friction against the Kurds once he wins. And I believe that prophecy indicates that he is the white horseman, that he's going to go against Israel. He's going to bring 10 full nations against him, but he's going to take out Iran first. And so if you look at how this is starting to turn violent, you got about a month and a half before this election on May 14th. This could get really harsh. And so I believe that Erdogan will be totally insulted and be totally upset about what is going on here, and that he is even running against a Kurdish opponent, and that when he wins, that he will retaliate. And when he does his land invasion, this will be a shock and awe event, and Iran will not last long because the Kurds will be completely decimated, and they will then have to align, as history has told us in the past. They'll align with the Persians, and then we will see the Babylonian or Nebuchadnezzar, in this case Turkey, or Erdogan come and crush both these nations. I say that could happen within a few months after that election. So by, even July and August, because when you get into October, he's already potentially moving towards Egypt and Israel in this case. And this is going to move quickly once it breaks out. Erdogan has the capacity and the buildup on the border to do an extremely effective job, and he's got Iran surrounded. So Iran will not stand long, and then he will go and drive across the Middle East to Egypt. Now, like I said, I can't produce all the stories and everything that's going on in Israel and how they're being affected by Hezbollah, Hamas, all the Iranian proxies, how the West Bank, Gaza, and all these different areas are being affected. It would be too long of a video. Just realize that the Israelis are not standing down, and they are going with maximum pressure in a lot of these cases. And so they're sending messages to Hezbollah, Hamas, and all these guys, do not do this stuff. And we already got you guys working with Iran. Iran's building up on us. We're not going to stand for this. We've attacked everything from the Syrian airport in Damascus to multiple targets out here, and you've been launching missiles at us, and so we're going to retaliate. This is not going to slow down. It's just going to keep building up, especially as now the national security guy is sending 2,000 new troops out to potentially push the Palestinians into a harder corner, and so this is just going to play out terribly, I believe. And like I say, Netanyahu's out here. You got Isaac Herzog out here. You've got a number of players out here. You've got that national security guy, Ben. I can't say his name. I'm sorry. I'll listen the next time I hear a video, and hopefully I can get it right. Netanyahu's working on this overhaul of the judicial system, and so there's been a few pauses, but he's moving forward. This is not going to go away, and so this is going to just keep inflaming. The protests are going to continue, and the overhaul is going to continue as all this other stuff's happening in the background. And in this article, I just wanted to show you a couple articles that this is affecting Syria tremendously at this moment, and so we're seeing multiple strikes against their airports to multiple different positions. Now, a lot of these positions, they believe, are Iranian controlled, and they're building these bases, and so they're eliminating armories, weapons manufacturing facilities, different groups of tactical and other types of things that these guys are doing through these proxies, and so they're trying to eliminate the problem, but this is just inflaming it, and now Hamas and all these groups are lashing out even more than they were before. And I just wanted to realize that if you go and you Google Hamas news or Hezbollah news or Israeli news or Turkish news, you can find all these articles. You guys need to go out and educate yourself in what's going on. Just rely on me to explain it to you. And I know you're free thinkers, but please come out here and look at these resources and determine for yourself what you think is happening. All I can do is show you my point of view. I'm not even sure exactly that this is, we all question whether, even myself, whether the information I'm producing is giving the right picture. I'm trying to give you the truth based on Scripture, and I've shown you where all those components and pieces and parts are. I also believe that the paradigm is right based on all the work that I put into it, and that I feel that God has given me the ability to see a totally different picture or optic than the churches and things are showing you. That doesn't mean I'm any more special than all of you, because everybody has the ability to see it. You just have to work at it, and it does take work. But in this case, Hamas is very active, and so all these groups are affecting Israel right now. Can you imagine the pressure on Israel right now as their economy's starting to potentially collapse? And I've talked about this and how the Joel 1 effect is going to affect Israel first by this spring. They're going to be affected by plagues. They're going to be affected by economic collapse. They're going to be affected by famine. They're going to be affected by a lot of things. By the time Joel 2, and in my case, I believe that is Erdogan, or the SEALs war that's going to go against Israel in the Middle East before we start the trumpet phase. We'll see the White Horseman, which is Erdogan, the first SEAL, bring a quarter of the planet into war. They'll destroy Iran through Daniel 8, and then they'll start a morphing into Ezekiel 38 and 39, which will take 10 radical Muslim nations against Israel through Egypt first, back into Israel. But they will all be decimated on the sixth seal by the wrath of the Lamb in 6:16. And then we will start a trumpet phase towards Antichrist, where the pit opens on the fifth trumpet, Antichrist and the false prophet rise on the sixth trumpet, and we have a Lord Jesus come back on the seventh trumpet, right before the bowl phase in Revelation 15:1. You see the seventh trumpet sound, you see the bowls handed out, we're removed, and then the bowls are dropped on the wicked, because we're not appointed for the wrath of God, which is 15:1, Revelation 15:1. This is not Revelation 6:16, which is the wrath of the Lamb or the Son. So please understand, there are two different wraths going on here, two different types of judgment. One is the Son's, one is the Father's. And so if you understand that, I believe you'll understand a lot more than most people out here, and it will give you a more insight to the truth and what's coming up. So watch what's happening in the next 6 to 10 months. We've got a seals war coming up. You have a potential global nightmare earthquake called the sixth seal coming up in potentially October. You have a potential meltdown of the system within the next 2 months, and a potential cryptocurrency, national cryptocurrency, potentially a global one over time, coming in as soon as potentially even July, because the fiat currency, the petrodollar, is moving away. And so you need to watch all these different factors out here. But realize that Israel is under massive duress right now, and Israel will go this alone. Egypt will fall away from them. They will not come to help when they are needed the most. Turkey will eliminate Iran and the Iranian problem, but then they'll turn on Israel and go against them. It's all in the Bible. You just need to know where to find it all. God bless everybody. Be safe out there. Start preparing. Get your oil in your lamp. Jesus is the only way through this doorway. You have to believe in the Son to get to the next level. God bless. Have a great night.